actually ventured out on a fire escape in New York City. It's a little shaky. It's not very far off the ground, thank God. But I'm being adventurous. Since everybody's making videos, I thought I would make one about a really great conversation my husband and I had at breakfast this morning with some gentlemen who traveled to New Jersey to play golf and to go to a Giants game. And apparently they're doing my bucket list. They're going to every NFL game that they can in every stadium in the country. They're retired guys and they're taking their grown sons and they're having a great time, and that's wonderful. So these guys, we sat at their table and they started asking us about what it's like to live here. They asked us, they actually started off the serious questions after the breakfast pleasantries with the question, so, what do you think of Donald Trump? If anyone knows me and my husband, you know that we are political junkies and we do not shy away from political conversations. But we tried to be polite, and ease off on the politic talk. But these guys would not let up. They weren't shy about asking us about what we thought about what was going on in American politics. So we just took their cue. We just, you know, went in on the conversation with them, and it was a fascinating, wonderful conversation. It was wonderful because it's great to have a conversation with people who are not like you. These were three older white guys from Canada who were French speaking. They were from French speaking Quebec. Retired, nothing in common with my husband and I, who live in Washington, D.C., urbanites, and are American. The only thing they have in common with us is that they're human beings and they live on the same continent. But it was so wonderful to have a conversation with them because they weren't afraid to ask questions. They weren't afraid to ask what we thought. And they sat and listened to what we had to say. And they were thoughtful in their responses, and they were respectful, even when they didn't entirely agree. That is something that we do not do very well, very much of anymore in this country. In America, when we disagree with people, we immediately write them off as stupid, morons, or just the enemy. And we need to stop doing that, because when we do that, we cut off every opportunity we have to learn something that we didn't know before. But I think that's kind of our problem. We think we know everything in America, and we believe that what we know is what everybody else should know, and it's what everybody else should agree with. But as we began to talk to these people, we began to realize that people who are not American don't see things the way we do. But more importantly, they don't see us the way we think the rest of the world sees us. They asked us about Obama and his policies, and they asked what was the problem with the GOP. One of the gentlemen said, "I can't believe it. How long has Obama been in office now? It's been 7 years, and after 7 years, I'm still hearing he's a Muslim and he's not even American. Why are we still hearing this after 7 years?" And my husband and I were sitting there and we were laughing because we were saying, dude, we're trying to figure that out too. We don't know what the problem is. We don't understand how people are this ignorant. And it struck me that this is how people see American politics. This is how people see Americans. As a group of people who are willing to hold on to and to even repeat and campaign on and vote for politicians based on a slanderous lie rather than to deal with the truth. And this is why people in other countries, leaders in other countries, are very nervous and disturbed about the dominance that America has. There was a news headline, I think it was on CNN or one of the news networks, that's where it came across the ticker at the bottom of the screen. World leaders concerned about U.S. dominance. My husband and I talked about that, and the issue is not that world leaders are concerned about U.S. dominance. World leaders are concerned about U.S. dominance in the hands of the wrong people. World leaders are concerned about U.S. dominance in the hands of possibly one of these 25, I think it's 25 now, GOP candidates as president. That's what the world is concerned about. Who's going to control the U.S.'s dominance after the next election? So we were talking to these gentlemen, and one of them asked, because then we talked about Black Lives Matter, and we talked about the police killings, and one of the gentlemen said, you know what, you guys have a gun problem. We have guns in Canada, but you guys' gun problem is out of control. We don't even understand it. He said, we have an issue with police pepper spraying people. They don't shoot and kill people, not like you guys do, and it just doesn't happen. And I told him, I don't have a problem with open carry. I'm a supporter of open carry, but I'm also a supporter of smart gun background checks. I'm also a supporter of enforcing the legislation that we have as far as guns are concerned. I'm also a supporter of having gun owners have liability insurance so that if your gun is stolen and you don't report it and that gun is found to have been used in a crime, you're liable. I think that's reasonable. That's not taking away anyone's freedom. That is adding in more layers of responsibility. You don't have to like that, but I'm not for taking away anybody's right to own guns. I just do believe we need to make sure that people who own guns own them responsibly, are responsible for them, and people who should not have guns should never get them. So one of the men also asked, about the Black Lives Matter issue and about police abuse. He said, well, aren't things better in America? I mean, don't you think things are better for black people in America? And, my husband said, on the surface, yes, of course things are better. Yes, we're not segregated anymore, not legally. Yes, of course things are better. We can live anywhere we want to, in theory. Of course things are better. We're not being lynched, technically. But you still have the issue of institutional racism. And I know people don't always agree with what that is, but when I can live anywhere I want to, but I'm charged a higher interest rate for the same loan that a white person with equal credit has been charged, then I'm not really free to live wherever I want, am I? Because I'm being penalized extra for wanting to live wherever I want, aren't I? And if my kid goes to a public school, then that public school might not be funded as well as a public school in a predominantly white neighborhood, because especially in the inner city, most public schools are in neighborhoods where people don't own homes. In cities, people live in apartments, and public schools are funded largely by property tax dollars. And if I send my kid to a public school and my little black son gets in trouble, gets into a little fight with another kid, my little black son might be punished more harshly than a white kid might be punished for the exact same infraction. There have been studies that have proven these things over and over and over and over again. But yet people in America don't believe that these things are true, no matter how many studies that are produced, that are done that prove that these things that we're saying and others are true. Persistent housing discrimination still happens. Employment discrimination still happens. When you've got white people who have criminal records who are more likely to get called back for a job than a black person, not only with a criminal record, but a black person without one. We've still got a problem with institutional racism in this country. But the striking thing about this conversation that we had with these nice gentlemen from Canada was they didn't know any of this. They didn't know any of it. And they didn't know any of it because The information they get about the United States comes from American corporate media. So they were shocked to know that these things still went on. They were glad that we told them, and they said they had a really wonderful time, and they thanked us for a great breakfast, and it was a great breakfast. My husband and I left that conversation really, really disturbed and concerned about the lack of awareness and education Black people have about our own history, the social issues that are pertinent to us in this country, and the political process. Now, we love social media as much as anybody else does, but if you've noticed, we share a lot of information on social media, and we do that so that people can become informed. There is a world outside of your neighborhood that knows even less about you than the people in this country do. The only information they're getting about you is what they are getting from corporate media. And because the only thing too many of us pay attention to is what the latest celebrity is doing, we can't counter that misinformation. That's a problem. That is a problem that only we can address. And for my fellow Americans who believe that we are great, and America is great, and the rest of the world believes that America is great, I'm not saying that people in other countries hate America. But I do believe that people in other countries really just do not see America the way that Americans think they see America. This is Jackie Lukman in her first dispatch in Lukman Nation from New York City, New York. Peace.